Hey everybody, and welcome to a Tatter-a-fact here at the Girlz Ink studio in Las Vegas. And I got a really super cool guest today. And it was kind of a last minute thing that just kind of happened. And super stoked it happened because we have Stacie-Rae here with us today.
Hi. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm super happy to have you. And for those that, I think the majority of the industry knows who you are and familiar with your work because you're a specialist. You specialize in areolas and scar tissue.
Yeah.
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 So those that don't know who you are or not familiar with you, I want them to check you out. Do you have an Instagram?
Yeah. Stacie-Rae.art.
Stacie-Rae.art. And your company's name, that's your company, ART.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it stands for, just for our listeners, Areola Restoration Tattoo.
Areola restorative tattoo. Yeah.
Areola Restorative.
Restorative.
Damn.
It's the same. It's the same.
I could never say that after a martini.
I know.
Restorative.
Yeah.
Did I get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Areola Restorative Tattoo, which is great. I've this is actually the second time you and I have met.
Yeah. Yeah. I came by to say hi to you back in 2018. I was just like, oh, Girlz Ink. I'd like to go meet Teryn and Amber because I kept hearing so much great things about you guys. And you were busy tattooing. Couldn't say hi.
I was working. Yeah.
I think that the person at the front was like, oh, do you want to go poke your head in? I'm like, no, they don't know who I am. Scare them.
That's funny. But we were both at a Vegas conference a couple months back. And I remember, because I know who you are, and we had never met. And I sometimes, believe it or not, I do get a little shy. And so I was walking behind. I look up. I had to go pee so bad, and I'm walking, and I look up, and I'm walking behind you, and there was no one else around.
Not awkward at all,
right? And there were like maybe two people different distance, and I kept trying to slow my walk to create more of a distance.
Not awkward at all.
No, but I really had to pee, so I'm like, fuck that. And so I think I said something like, I'm totally not following you to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then we got in there. It was just me and you. And I'm like, how about if you go down there and I we just make sure there's some stalls between us so we don't.
So you said that like there was one place that we were going. There's only one destination in that direction.
In that direction, that was the bathroom.
So luckily you caught me halfway there and you're like, oh, hey, like, it's nice to meet you. And I was like, I think I just trialed some of your needles before they came out. They didn't tell me whose needles they were, but we both made needles with Tatsol and they sent me these needles. And so then when I saw the Girlz Ink needles, I'm like, that must have been what I was playing with. So I was like, I think I just trialed your needles and I liked them.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And and you have your own needle line with Tatsol as well.
Yeah, for
right?
areola tattooing.
Yeah, for the configurations and diameters specific for areola work. And scar tissue work, areola?
I use them for everything. I made them to fill all of my needs.
Right.
And I do scar reduction and I do scar cover-ups, decorative scar cover-ups, and I do restorative tattooing, all kinds of restorative tattooing. And so I just told them all the different configurations that I would like to use for that and asked them if they could make 2 different boxes for that. And they did.
Yeah.
They did. I couldn't believe it. I was expecting some pushback, but they're like, if this is what she wants, this is what she gets. So luckily they let me make what I think is the ideal needles for working in challenging skin, no matter what you do.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. And I love the box, like your box. You created your box. The design on the box is like super cool. You come from body tattooing, like I do, and you've been in this industry, body tattooing and areola and scar work, over 25, was that what you were saying? Over 25 years, correct?
Yeah, so I got a tattoo done in a basement when I was like 14 and with like the jailhouse kind, you know?
Yeah.
Because obviously no tattoo shop would give me a tattoo.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I'm getting
hasn't
one.
Hasn't everybody done that?
Anyone who's serious about tattooing, I think, are just like, I latched on, you know, I loved it.
Yeah.
So I started drawn flash and hanging around the local tattoo shop in 1989.
1989.
Dude,
wow.
I was 14.
Yeah. 14.
Yeah.
And back then, it was tough being a female
Yeah.
in a male-dominated industry, in the tattoo industry. Is it still tough? Has it gotten easier for women in body tattooing?
I think so, yeah. Because like now I go to tattoo convention, it's like half women. I'm like, you guys don't even know. I remember when I was one of 3 women at the whole tattoo convention.
Absolutely.
The first convention I went to was in 98 or 99. And it was just a different world back then, just a completely different world.
Completely different world. And we've got, and there's like female rock stars in the body tattoo industry. Liz Cook, one of your good friends, being one of them. I have the pleasure of seeing her at quite a few conferences throughout the year. And so I don't know her, outside of the conference worlds. But we do hang out and see each other at the conferences, and I adore her, and she's a mega talent.
Yeah, and I think I was just talking about this recently. I think the thing about her that really attracts me, and which is the same thing about you, is just that she just really cares about the craft.
Yeah.
She just loves tattooing. She just loves the art form. And I try to embody that. And I see that in you too. And that's kind of why I'm glad to be sitting here today with you. Just people who just really love the art of tattoo. Because it's ancient, it's sacred, it's been around for up to 25,000 years. They're finding evidence of tattooing being around 25,000 years ago. Some people that pay attention to that are saying that it could be older than the pyramids. Like it's a cultural thing that just keeps beating the test of time.
Right. Yeah. I agree. And when you got here earlier today, we were talking, and we really kind of connected on a level. I don't want to get all like gushy and weird on you, but we did. I told you a little bit about my story, and I actually saw you, saw you get a little emotional, or I thought I saw you get a little glossy in the eye, a little glossy in the eye area, Stacie. And that was when I told you, it's like, I'm deeply passionate. I am in love with the craft, and not too many people refer to it as the craft. Yeah. So when you said that word today, the craft, immediately I lit up, and I'm all ears. I want to know more, just because you referred to it as the craft. And body tattooing and PMU, it saved my life. Yeah. And I'm not saying that as a cliche sort of thing. It really, really, truly saved my life. I don't know as if I would be here today.
Yeah, like it gave you something to believe in.
It gave me something to believe in. It gave me something to feel good about myself about. It gave me something to offer others. It made me feel happiness and joy for the very first time in many, many years. It got me out of a really dark place, and I got obsessed with it, and I've been dedicated and so loyal to it ever since. Almost 22 years, and your story is very, very similar. You feel your work saved your life. This industry, the craft, saved your life.
Yeah, I wrote an article for Freshly Inked magazine that said the title of it is "Tattoos Saved My Life." Literally.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. I think that's beautiful, and it's magical. It really, really is. And there's, I think there's a lot of people in the industry's changed a lot, in the last 5 years.
Well, it wasn't an industry back in the day. I have one thing to say about being a craftsman before we kind of move on too much, but it wasn't an industry when I got into it.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I think when
when we started calling it an industry, there was a lot of pushback from like the older guys, you know, where there was like one tattoo artist to town. They were like, no, don't industry this, don't corporate this, you know. And here we are, it kind of, they went on the TV shows and it took on its own life. And here we are just trying to kind of keep the ancient part of it alive. So you talked about the craft, and I would really love to tell you where I'm coming from real quick with that, because I'd like to inspire a lot of that in newer PMU tattooists.
Absolutely.
Admittedly not a PMU tattooist. I do everything but PMU. But since medical tattooing is kind of the bridge between body art and PMU, that I represent that. So I remember one of my heroes said to me, you know, you've got your artists and you've got your craftsmen. This was back in the 90s. He's like, you got your artists and you got your craftsmen. And what he meant by that is you have people who are artists who make art on the body, who put their art on the body. That's just one of their canvases that they use, right? And then craftsman is a technical thing. So back in the 90s, that would have been, a craftsman would have been a guy who can replicate, like flash it's on the wall and do a really good job of putting it in the skin technically. And my hero said, what you got to be good is be the perfect mixture of both of those things. Yeah. So that became my goal. I'm like, okay, so I want to be part artist, part craftsman, and
yeah, I think that's beautiful. I resonate with that for sure. I was lucky, you know. I entered into PMU first, as I told you, and just got disenchanted with, you know, eyebrows turning color, and I just was disenchanted, and I'm like, I'm gonna quit. And I'm going to go be a body tattoo artist. And because I could draw and sculpt, and, you know, I was super artistic, and I was drawing, you know, and painting big portraits at that time. Ever since I was a little kid, I was drawing portraits. And got an apprenticeship at the Skin Factory under Eddie Lynn, and he did not allow, you couldn't really purchase needles in his shop. He was a little bit of an old timer with a modern edge, if that makes sense. And so first 3 months, I just had to make all his needles. And then I remember this guy, Irish Mike, really didn't want to make his needles anymore, and he'd pay me a little money to make his needles. And I just started making needles. And I fell in love. And that's how I learned needles. And what I learned was I was using all the wrong needles. I was taught all the wrong needles in PMU. A 3 and 5 liner for everything was what I was taught, for eyebrows.
That's crazy to me.
Yes, that's all that was being used back then. Do you know, in 1999, 2000, that's predominantly what was being used, is a 3 liner, 5 liner for everything. I think every now and then you'd find a PMU artist that maybe was using a mag or a bigger needle configuration, but that was pretty obscure. And almost instantly, you know, I learned the movements, the core fundamental tattoo movements, and started applying that to my PMU, you know, my brows, my eyeliner, my lips, and my work changed overnight. Overnight. And one thing I'm going to say, which is a little funny, you know, circles in body tattooing, we do a lot of circles, right? That's how you pack in pigment. Do you know nowadays they consider that I can't tell you how, you guys, right, how many times we did a podcast on it, because they think the new generation of PMU artists thinks doing circles is, it's ancient, it's dated, it's irrelevant, and I'm like, that is one of the core fundamental movements of tattooing.
So here's the thing, I'm bad at interrupting, my apologies.
No, please.
Because I probably won't stop. I keep doing it, so I'm sorry, bad at it. So to follow up with that, that's one of the reasons that I'm glad that you're a leader and a trainer in this, because you come from a body art world and you have that knowledge, right? Because the thing about going through a tattoo apprenticeship is you learn to do everything, so that you can bring the right technique or the right tool out for what's required of that job in that skin in that moment, and you learn everything. And so I started, and God, I hope this comes out with the love that I feel for the industry as a whole, because it almost seems like, you know, you take like this class for this, and you go take that class for that. And I'm like, but that doesn't make a master. Learning that way isn't the way to learn, because you have to bridge all those gaps, right? So I made this analogy, and I really hope, like I said, that this is received with the love that it's intended, because I'm like, that's kind of like a doctor going and taking a 3 or 4 day class to learn how to set bones, and then going and taking another class to learn how to do administer an IV, and taking another class to learn about like drugs and anesthesiology, and does that make a doctor?
Yeah.
No, the doctor has to know everything.
Right.
So I feel like I'm glad that you kind of see the connection between all these things, because so many people come and take my classes that are missing that connection that is all tattooing, and we need to be able to do it all.
Right.
Well,
exactly. You know, and I think I present my message, same message. I present a little bit differently. I preach versatility and efficiency.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 words that I've been using for years. And because what I see going on in the industry and is, you know, these young artists, and they're only being taught one needle, the single needle, maybe the single needle and a 3-liner, and they're being taught one way to implant, one way to move, the whip shading movement. And that's it, Stacie.
So those people should not do areolas.
Right, exactly.
There's much more to learn.
What a lot of them are finding out on their own once they've been working on clients a year or 2 years, you know, we get a ton of emails and calls. They're not successful or having successful results with a huge percent of their clientele, because we're working on scar, even if you don't do areola or scars, you know, you're working on, even in the eyebrow area, you know, you can have scar tissue, you can have oily skin, challenging skin, resistant skin, you know, difficult, challenging skin without even any visible scars present. And you know, that single needle is not going to hold up. It's not going to do the job. It's not. And young artists are getting frustrated. So 100%, I'm with you on that. I would like to see young artists learning the single, the 3 and 5 liners, but also the larger round shaders and the larger mag configurations, learning the circular movement, the whip shading movement, you know, the core fundamentals of tattooing, which apply to PMU.
Well, it's all tattooing.
It's all tattooing, but some people do try to separate it.
Don't separate it.
Yeah.
It's we need to bridge this gap, not burn it.
100%. Yeah, so that's fantastic. That's why I'm so glad that you're on here today, and you know, and you know, and they do end up figuring it out, but I wish right from the get-go that they were taught this. You know, we do a 6-month apprenticeship here.
Yeah, that's what I think I like about Nevada, that there is a 6-month apprenticeship. I was kind of surprised by that, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they do it. But you were just saying like it's only a few hours a week, man. I was like in the tattoo shop all the time, you know, as soon as I could get in, I just didn't want to go home. As a matter of fact, I refer to it lovingly now as tenacity, but at the time it was naivety. I just didn't realize that they were trying to make me go home, and I was like, no, I'm fine. They're like, go home, kid. Like, you're not even old enough to be in here. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm just sitting in the corner doing my drawing. And eventually they started letting me clean the floors and answer the phone and do stencils for them. And
right. Well,
I was just so happy to be learning.
That's a traditional tattoo apprenticeship. Yeah, here in Vegas is 6 months, but I believe it's only 2 hours a week that is required. So, you know, that doesn't fly with me. So they have to be here lots of hours a week, and they just have to be here. And, you know, we teach single needle liners, shaders, all the movements, everything. So when they leave, you know, in 6 months, they've got a solid ground to stand on. They're versatile in their needle choices, in their movements, and they're better equipped for all the different skin types that are going to, you know, lay down for them. And then when they're ready for scar tissue or areola, you know, like if, you know, An apprenticeship like that, a student being taught that way, when they come to you, they're better prepared for your specialty class.
They'll learn more that what I have to teach.
That's right.
They'll be able to take more home. They'll have a way higher success rate. They won't struggle as much. They'll be able to make sense, like problem solve, because scar tissue poses a lot of challenges.
Right.
And
yes.
so you're setting people up for success. And I really appreciate that about you, because I keep thinking about like these crash courses and the people that come to ask me to take my training, and how little they actually know about tattooing. And I'm like, how is this allowed to happen?
Yeah, I know.
It just kind of makes me sad for tattooing.
And you know, to go cut hair in Nevada, like a year,
right,
40 hours a week,
right.
But to take a needle and put it in someone's face with ink on the end of it. Right? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We can cause scarring, infections, transmitted diseases. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'll be very, candid. I mean, I charge $8,500 for my 6-month apprenticeship. I wanted it affordable, and come to find out most of the 6-month apprenticeships are out of state people. They're coming from California. They're coming from Arizona. I've got one coming from Ohio.
See, they want it.
They want it.
This level of
they
training.
want it. And $8,500 for 6 months. I mean, they're paying $4 or $5 grand for a 2 or 3 day crash course in their local states, local areas. So why not locate out here for 6 months?
Yeah.
And spend 6 months with us here at the Girlz Ink studio.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, man. Okay, so let's get down to let's talk about Areola like a little bit.
All right.
So I do areolas, but not at your. I mean, you're like the area. I mean, that's just like your specialist. Just something that you do. I do quite a bit of them, and I've been doing them a lot of years. But you're Stacie-Rae. So how long? This is always a debate that I see online on Facebook. How long after their last surgery, their very last surgery they do with their plastic surgeon, like restorative surgery, how long is an appropriate wait time before the tattooing should take place?
Right. Yeah, this is a super common question, and there is no answer for it. So what I find is what I keep trying to get across to people is there is no right or wrong. It really depends on the body, and the body will let you know. So the easiest way to know what the body is telling you is if it's red, don't tattoo it.
Right.
Now, so on me, when I had my mastectomy and I had a breast implant reconstruction, but I ride horses, and the weight of the implants and the motion of the horse riding, because I don't ride no like amble down the sidewalk horses. I ride rodeo horses, like high tech, high performance horses. So that kind of impact pulled my scarring apart, and my scars were red for about 6 years, almost 6 years. So for me, that's 6 years. But if you ask my surgeon, who doesn't know anything about tattoos at all, his receptionist does his tattoos and botches people left, right, and center, he would say that I was ready in 3 months.
Yeah.
So, and then a common thing that I hear in the industry is like, oh, 1 year, but maybe, but not on me.
Right, exactly.
So that can't be a rule, right?
Right. Because if the scar is still red, then the body it's being fed, right? It's being fed and nourishment and healing, and so that is a rule of thumb here. A year, unless they're still red, and right. So okay, so that does that. And what about radiation?
So radiation is incredibly challenging. So it
extremely.
It destroys the skin. The skin will never fully recover. Sometimes it's really vascular looking. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it looks thin. Sometimes it doesn't. It's really hard to know how much radiation damage is done. from the surface of the skin, that's another one. I'm like, there are no hard answers for any compromised tissue.
Right.
So you got to be ready for anything. I would say that the first thing is never use a liner on radiation.
Yeah.
That'll be a win right off the bat. You never want to use like a tight needle grouping on radiation.
And tell me, and I know why, but I think there's, like you said, we said it earlier, just so many people in PMU that are picking up needles and tattooing clients have no clue about needles. They don't understand needles.
Yeah.
And so what is it about?
Do you think we could talk Tat Soul into letting us do like some education around that, or like something needs to happen?
Well,
here,
it's so
right?
funny. I have an online needle course, the needle and the prick.
Oh, awesome.
And
I was looking at some of your courses. I think like I brushed across it, but I'll definitely go take a look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to upload you so you can check it out. But liners, definitely not a liner on tissue like that. But a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah. So here's what it is, you guys. So here's your godmotherly advice from old school Stacie-Rae here. When the needles are close together, when there's not a lot of room in between the needles, the way that I like to teach this is when there's room in between the needles is forgiving for two reasons. One of the reasons is because skin can fit in there. So a tight grouping like a liner, the skin can't fit in there. And so something as damaged as radiated skin, is just going to be destroyed. It's going to be shredded.
Yeah.
Shredded. There's no other way to say it. The second reason that this is forgiving is that the solder is usually pulled further back up the needle bars, and that gives some flexibility. So not only is there space between the needles, but now the needles can move around a little bit.
Yeah.
So then it's forgiving. So compromised tissue has some room to tolerate the perforation.
Right. Exactly. In my needle class, I kind of explain it. Same thing. I show a 5 liner right next to a 5 shader. And those liners, you solder it up so hard, it's like cinching like a trash bag, right? They're rigid and they're tight and they don't flex or move on the skin. Where a shader, as you're doing movements, because the solder is much further down, right? It's a loose needle. It opens up and it flexes on the skin. Kind of like, those mops with all the strings? When you do a mop in and out and those little strings that barely dampen, right? That's kind of like a shader. It's just, it's gentler on the skin.
So I'm going to tell you guys something from our time, because we're both kind of old school. 20 plus years, that puts us in the old school. Does it? I'm not sure. I'm freaking old school. I know that. So back then, it was commonplace. She's going to laugh when I say this. I know that. Back then, it was commonplace to finish lining your needle and then take a lighter and...
Yes.
What did you do with your lighter, Terry?
You tell him first, Stacie. I didn't say I did it.
So the solder comes down the needle bar, right, to hold the tip of the needles. If they're really tight, like if it's a super tight, then the soldering comes down further to make sure that they stay in that configuration. Right. The further back the soldering is, the more movement that there is, and you can't really line with something that's this flexible. So we would finish doing the outline and then just be like, hold the lighter up and open up that solder. Yeah. And we're like, it's a shader now. Here we go. Off to the races.
Yeah. Well, I would make some, when I first started needle making, and my shaders were quite shaders, and he told me they're kind of like in between, they're almost liners, and he would take the match, the lighter, and move that solder down,
melt it
right down the needle.
So
and voila,
let's talk about. I got a question for you.
What's that?
How many times did you burn your eyeballs out of your head with flux and solder on your fingertips?
How about are you crazy? Yes. And maybe
and you guys out there with your we're on the uphill both ways to school kind of train here right now. You guys don't even know how good you have it.
They have no idea. I mean, cartridges weren't even a thing back then. They were a thing in PMU. They were not a thing 20 years ago in really body tattooing.
They couldn't really make a reliable rotary machine, right? Like it took a while for them to figure out how to make a reliable rotary machine that had like didn't have a lot of
And I think it was
movement.
Bishop, wasn't it? Franco, who really kind of did with that V6, like one of the first ones.
Sure. The first one that I remember really liking was the Neotat.
The Tap Tap Daddy-O Neotat. Yeah, I met him. I liked him. I believe his name was Ray. I think his name was Ray, and he taught a needle class. Yeah, I took he had a little needle class that he would kind of do. Yeah, the Neotat. So you're right. But I remember that being a little heavy and a little bulky for me.
Like a coil.
Yeah, like a coil. Mm-hmm. And then I remember Bishop came out with the V6. And that I ended up really, really liking that. But yeah, that solder was a bitch. And it's hysterical.
It'd be like 3 days before this stuff came out of your eyeballs, like, God. And you'd be like doing, and the stuff's like
we should have been wearing goggles,
yeah,
Stacie.
Yeah, probably the goggles would have been a great idea.
Well, if you read the
and
bottle,
it would have been splattering, so of course you're getting itchy, and you go like this, and then it's over. You got 3 days of misery.
Yeah, and your fingertips are all burnt to hell. Yeah, you get scar tissue on it. I think I ended up getting scar tissue on a couple of them. And on my thumb right here, it's still there, even though I haven't used a stainless steel grip or a coil in many years. But man, I had the big old lump there, the big old, what do you call that? Callus. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time all of us, Eddie was like, yeah, let's put all the thumbs out. Let's see who's got the biggest, ugliest callus. But anyway, yeah, they got it really easy nowadays. Mm-hmm. But back then.
But you know what it does is it gives them so much time and energy to focus on the craftsman side of things, the technical side of things, and drawing. So where this has leveled up the body art world is now that body artists have all these things taken off their plate. They don't have to scrub tubes. They don't have to make needles. Now the artwork is going through the freaking roof because they're putting all of that time and love into their pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And same with the PMU industry, the talent, the skill level. You're seeing that, just go up and up and up.
Yeah, like
too.
Some of the eyebrows, like Shaughnessy, this girl Shaughnessy, she took my Areola course a while back, but she is like an art school grad. Yeah. The eyebrows that she's doing, I'm like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, there's some great work. So both industries, are really, evolving and elevating, and it's great. What I'm happiest about for the PMU industry is, because that's really where I'm most involved. There was a time where I was kind of straddling both, and then just kind of organically ended up knee deep in PMU. Is that the overlapping of body tattoo philosophy, needles, machines into PMU? Because when I entered PMU, we were taught you cannot use a coil machine. You cannot move like that. You cannot use needles like that. What was being sold was $12,000 and $15,000 digital machines, and your needles were $25 a pop. And I was buying that, Stacie.
Why do you think it was?
I think it was that because I'm going to just be frank. We were a bunch of women, and we didn't know better. That's what was being taught, and it was probably being really pushed by the manufacturers of these digital machines. And if you're a distributor and you're making $600-700 a pop every time you sell a $12,000 machine, you're going to push that machine. I sell machines. If we get a 20% margin on a machine, or 30% maybe, that you're doing good. There's not a lot of margin on machines because the pricings now, you can get a great machine for $500-600. Some of them are $800-900, $1,200. But you can still get a great machine for $500 or $600, and so a distributor doesn't make $600 or $700 a pop. You're not making that margin on on the needles. So I think that's why it was so driven and so pushed in our faces to buy, and I think that's why they wanted to keep the body tattoo and PMU industry segregated and separate, because there was that army out there doing that at the time.
Okay, so I really want to know more about this. Can we just stay on this for a second? Because I was never into PMU.
Yeah.
But some people that I admire were, Mary Jane.
Yes, my mentor.
Was she your mentor?
Yeah, she was one of my mentors.
Yeah,
yes.
her and Vivine taught a class on mastectomy tattooing in 2006 at this Reno convention, the APT convention, or was it the national? Anyway, one of those. And I was like, my mom had been diagnosed with cancer, so I was like, oh, I didn't know at the time that I was going to lose my own breasts, but I was like, oh, what a great thing to like use my skills for, and she was a game changer, but I couldn't see her doing something like that.
She did not.
No.
She did not. She was different, but she was not an outcast. She owns Dermal Source. So she had her in aesthetics. She was super innovative, super talented with scar. She used to have a retreat at her home in, I believe it was in Oregon, right? Portland, Oregon. She toured and, taught with the National Tattoo Convention. I took, I took a lip course from her, an areola course from her. I remember being so giddy and nervous around her because she was just my idol. Yeah. And she did body tattooing, and I would see her in, the magazines, and to finally meet her one day at a PMU convention, I was just blown over. I couldn't believe it was Mary Jane Hockey, like a few steps away. And I remember going up and, being kind of like, goofy, I'm like a big fan of it. And she like barely said hi to me and brushed me off. And I'm like, oh my God, And then I met her like, I think the year later, and she complimented my hair. Yeah, my hair caught her attention that day. And we ended up having some conversations and speaking needles and techniques and whatnot. And there was a connection. And the following year I was doing a class in New Orleans, and she emailed me, want to buy a ticket. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
She took my first class too.
Yeah. Exciting, humbling, honoring, but at the same time, oh my God, I'm going to die. Yeah. Mary Jane Hockey's going to be in my class. Yeah. I'm going to die. That's how I felt. But it was great. It went great. And we ended up being great friends and great mentor of mine. But so she wasn't a part of that push. She used a coil. She used tattoo machines. She had the tattoo philosophies. But when you're a voice of few, the message isn't, heard by many, and I was a little bit of an outcast when I first entered the industry. I didn't have a product. I didn't have anything that, wowed anybody. I was just tattooed and pierced and used coil, and they called it what's that thing that drills into the
jackhammer?
My first permanent makeup convention. Oh, you use a jackhammer. Oh, that's all. You get blood splatter. And because of that first encounter, I just stopped speaking about my tool, my craft, my tools, my whatnot, because I felt ostracized a little bit. Yeah. But then people started seeing my work. And then they got a little interested. Yeah. And students started just, hey, do you train? What's that? What do you mean? I started winging it. and things just went from there, Stacie. But yeah, so the industries definitely are going in the right direction and elevating it. It's an exciting time to be a part of both. And with that said, there's always, the stuff that goes along with such great growth and great things that aren't so great, but other than that, I'm still feel blessed to still be, knee deep in PMU and doing what I love, man, and I know you are too.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm super grateful to be able to keep it fresh. So I'm super grateful to, because I don't think, and I say this all the freaking time, I don't think any of us would be in an industry like this if we didn't like a challenge. Right. Like if we just kind of learned the thing and then we knew it and then it ended, we would pick something else to go after, So I love how constantly challenged I am and humbled I am by this craft. Yeah, I'm just super grateful that there's still a place in it for me, you know. And then like I never thought I would ever come up with something that hadn't been done before, you know. I never thought that I was really an original thinker. I was just like, if I can learn how to do good solid tattoos, and I can have a good career just giving people good solid tattoos and prove that women can do good tattoos, because all the women that were tattooing in Canada were doing bunk tattoos at that time. There was nobody doing good tattoos, not like the guys were, not like the large scale pieces or anything in a magazine or anything.
Would you agree that women it was probably harder for a woman to get an apprenticeship? It was like a man's, it was dominated by men. It was probably harder. I remember 20 years ago, I was in a shop. I'm grateful I was in a shop with, you know, really nice men. But I did see some things, and and the girls had to work a little bit harder to earn their spots.
Much harder.
Yes.
I had to work my butt off. I just stopped myself from swearing there.
Yes.
Be proud of me. I had to work my butt off, like to even be seen. I had to be doing better drawings than the guys around me, you know? And then when they saw them, they're like, a chick did that? Oh, yeah? A chick, hey? Oh. You know, Canada, eh? So, they're like, a chick did that. Huh, really? Yeah, it's not too bad, I guess. Meet this chick. Now, that was, there was like a novelty to me.
Right.
Where maybe they would have given it, but they had to see the artwork before they saw me.
Right.
If they saw me first, they would have probably discredited the artwork. Yeah.
But probably because, I don't know if you share the sentiment, like maybe back then it was annoying and maybe pissed us off a little bit. But I think that was a big part of what made us who we are today, right? Because we had to work so hard, much harder than anyone else, you know, to prove ourselves, to get a seat at the table and whatnot. So I'm actually ended up very grateful for, you know, those harder times. I think it's the hard times that shape and mold you into your, not the easy. If everything was easy, then, you know, we'd probably be doing everything half-assed.
Yeah, and they call it paying your dues, you know, you're paying your dues, right?
Yeah.
I had somebody come up to me, at Charlotte, I gave a seminar, and this lady, we're waiting, it was like every person before me was getting later and later, so all the people that were waiting for Michael were all standing out in the hallway, and this lady was like, oh, I wanted to get into body tattooing, and I'm like, well, why didn't you then? She goes, well, she's like, I thought it'd be easier this way. I'm like, it's not not about being easy.
Right.
It's about learning what you need to learn to be good.
Yes.
And she said something flippant to me that I was just like, it threw me off my game. I didn't do a very good job on that seminar because it really kind of put me in my head a little bit too much. Plus, like, the waiting a freaking hour out in the hallway with everybody. But she said, I'm not going to scrub toilets for 2 years. Okay. I was like, wow, that's an egotistical statement.
Yeah, right.
Go scrub a toilet, lady. Like, go learn something about what it takes to be dedicated to your craft. You know, like, it really kind of threw me. Like, she didn't get a good response.
Because back then, and I don't know what a body tattoo apprentice. I think they're run, you know, fairly similar. You wanted an apprenticeship. You wanted a mentor's knowledge. You absolutely 1,000,000% earned it by cleaning the shop, scrubbing the toilets, running errands, you know, photographing clients' licenses, making their needles, setting up their trays. And you never asked, ever, when do I get to do my first tattoo? They will let you know.
No, because that's like detention. You
that's
just get
detention.
Well, it's going to take another 6 months now.
You know, and you know, there's moments where you think, I'm doing all this work for free. Am I gonna, you know, and then, you know, and if you're lucky, and then you'll be presented the opportunity to do your first tattoo. But it's not like that in PMU. You can buy pretty much a piece of paper, in 3 days, hang it on your wall, and now you're certified to tattue
And certified
eyebrows.
doesn't mean qualified. And
Absolutely.
A lot of people will get that certificate and they paid for it. They didn't earn it, and they don't have they didn't pay enough attention to back it up with like what you should have learned. There's and in 5 days, like I'm just this is where my old school comes in, because I'm like, you can't learn how to tattoo in 5 days. But what it does is it gives you this false sense of security without the sense of curiosity.
Right.
where you would start to learn from the challenges in the skin. That curiosity is kind of the thing that keeps you engaged to be like, well, what if I tried this? What if I tried that?
Yeah.
That is the real learning. Or talking to somebody else. Have you tried this? How did it work for you?
Yeah.
Like,
but that's PMU. I mean, there's no apprenticeships. You know, I'm one of the only, you know, I think there are a couple other states that require it, you know, that do the 6 month. But, and the artists that are not like paid 6 month apprenticeships, like Amber, Michon, Amy, right?
Yeah.
They don't pay. I run it old school tattoo style. I mean, they're with me and they work their ass off for 5, 6, 7, 8 months, maybe a year. Depends on how dedicated, how much they're here. And then one day they get to do maybe a touch up on one of my brows. So, and that's the best way to learn. And I do think, you know, and on the positive side, you know, I always try to see the positive side of things. I do have some dear, dear friends. Jen Boyd's one that always comes to mind.
I keep hearing about her.
You'd love her. But she took a 3-day class, you know, and because that's what's available.
Right.
That's what's available. You want to learn PMU, that's what's available. 3-day class or a 5 or 6-day class, that's what's available.
Yeah.
So there's not much option or opportunity for anything beyond like a week. But in that 3-day class is when she felt it deep in her bones. This is what she wanted to do. And she knew without a shadow of a doubt she needed to go find a mentor and get training. That's what she did. And she spent, you know, like a year training. And she's an amazing artist. And I do think that does happen. There's a lot of people that do enter these classes because what else are they going to fucking do if they want to do PMU? There's not a lot of choices for anything better. And then the ones that take the craft seriously, they understand, okay, this 3-day class, it didn't really teach me what I needed to do, but what it did do was light a fire in my belly. I have goosebumps. I want to do this. And I'm going to dedicate however long it takes to be good at it. Yeah. And so we do have a lot of that in the industry, which I'm grateful for. So let's talk about your skins.
All right.
We don't have much time, but I wanna. How long have we been running?
47 minutes.
Oh, okay, good. So we're good. Usually I, you know, we try to keep it about an hour. I don't want my listeners getting bored, you know, or tuning us off before we're done.
Yeah.
But you've got, so your specialty is areolas and scars. You do camouflage work for the scars. And you've got these great skins that I have never seen before. Are they for sale yet?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They are for sale. So where can one purchase them?
MetaArtProSkins.com, Stacie-Rae.com, AreolaRestorativeTattoo.com. Some of our products are available at Tat Soul, Kingpin, and Ever After Beauty Supply, but I don't think that they have these in yet because these ones I've just been saving for my students, just for people who come and take my training. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hold them up. I'm going to hold them up because some people.
Light is bright.
Oh, it's too bright. What about this camera over here? It's too bright. Yeah. But too bad. But anyway, so go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, so we put the most common scars in them, like stretch marks, hypertrophic keloids, some acne scars, some of the puckering that you might see in like a dog ear on a breast reconstruction. We have burn and necrosis representation on here. So what I was finding was I started teaching areolas almost 10 years ago. I started doing them like 12 years ago. I lost my breasts over 10 years ago and got my own nipple tattoos botched by a nipple tattoo trainer who's still teaching those bad mistakes. It's like kind of like we've got like some industry problems that I'd really like to bring solutions to. So this is my solution. Yeah. So what I was finding was a lot of people just didn't understand how to tattoo scar tissue. The same with the girl that botched my nipples. She just didn't understand scar tissue.
And breasts are full of scars.
It's all
It's
scar
all
tissue.
scar tissue.
So people tend to think, I think there's like a flawed logic here where people think that the scar is just the physical thing that they can see and everything else is healthy tissue. But in
Right.
a breast reconstruction, all of the skin has been separated from the underlying tissue. So it's all scar tissue.
Right.
So people only think about what's going on the outside without thinking about enough about what's going on the inside, which is a whole other thing.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so what would the solution? This is a serious problem, and a lot of women are getting bad tattoos because of this
Yeah.
problem. And I know what it's like to have bad nipple tattoos, and if my whole career focus is just to stop that from continuing, then that's a good career focus.
Right.
And so I kind of started thinking about like, what would it look like to have scar representation? And I sent it to my business partner, Sam. I was on a plane coming back from the UK. I did a training out there and I was like, how do I explain scar tissue to people who don't know scar tissue? Oh my God, this is a problem. And is there a solution? And I started thinking of solutions. And when I landed, I sent my little drawing to Sam and I was like, is this something that can be made? And she's like, yeah, I worked for 8 years in the film industry. I totally worked with silicone and I know how to make molds. I'm like, you know this? She's like, yeah, I could have you mold in 2 weeks. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Wait, what? And she made me she made me. I shouldn't say made me. She made the perfect thing. She made it way better than I would have ever thought. She knew exactly what I was bitching about because she heard me bitch about it before. And she knew exactly what I wanted to see happen. Something with that people could practice scars without harming clients because there's so much to know.
Yeah.
So we made a few different variations and this is kind of the
I
newest
think they're
one.
fantastic. You got it out today, and I'm like, oh my God, yeah. There's a keloid. You can just feel all the scar tissue, and I think it's fantastic.
The stretch marks are thinner,
Yeah.
so you could tear it if
Yeah.
you're not careful with it, just like in real life.
So they can find these on Stacie-Rae.com. And what do they sell? What do they sell for? Did they get one in a pack, two in a pack?
One in a pack. They're kind of expensive. We made them really high quality. They're $50, but
Yep.
they're a great practice piece. And they do take Sam made them really high quality. They do take a
You can
beating.
feel it. You can. It's thick, and you can feel the quality. Look. You can buy cheap latex practice pads.
Maybe you want to sell them.
And they're horrible. Yeah.
Did you guys see that? See what
I
did there?
did see that. I saw that slip in there. But yeah, look, I'm always looking for great, innovative new products that, our customers are going to love. So we'll definitely, I'd love to have those on the store. So you left Canada and you moved to Vegas. You're living in my town now. Yeah. Welcome to Vegas, Stacie.
Thank you.
Perfect city for you, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. It was like we just had I was kind of mentioned to her earlier. I'm on Celsius. So she's like, oh, you got to convert it to Fahrenheit. I'm like, no, I'm Canadian. I think in Celsius. And so we just had, for those of you who might be Canadian and know anything about Celsius, or in the UK, because they're on Celsius too.
Yeah.
We just had like a month straight that it was 47 degrees. So that's like 110 or 115. Like it was freaking hot.
Yeah.
For like a month straight. And but in Canada, where I lived before, it gets down to minus 47. So I was kind of doing, and at minus 40, both of them meet up. The Celsius and Fahrenheit are the same at minus 40.
I'd rather deal with extreme heat than
Right.
extreme cold, man.
Right. So I was doing the math on it and I was like, okay, so up there in the winter, you've got the heat on all the time. And down here, you've got the AC on all the time. So up there,
Right.
you live in an oven. And down here, you live in a fridge. It's like,
That's right. And you have a pool, to go dip in,
and then I remembered ice.
Yeah. Ice. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think I'll stay.
Yeah.
I'll stay here.
And it's real. Exactly, right? And Vegas has like sunshine like 350 days out of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's going to be cold, at least it's bright and sunshiny, which I need the sun. I need the sun. Every now and then when it gets gloomy or rainy, you end up loving it, because it's it's very seldom we have rainy, gloomy days. So it's mostly sunny. So which is good for me, because I'm sensitive to I talk about my anxiety and my depression on here, pretty transparently. So I'm like somebody that needs sun. I would not do well in a gloomy place.
Yeah, same. I'm like, I don't know whether, So now you're talking about mental health, right? Which is one of the things that I focus on because I do work with trauma sites. And one of the things that I teach is about the tattooers, like our responsibility to our clients' mental health. And so I'm hyper focused on mental health also. And yeah, Canada's not a good place for that.
No,
Vegas is a much better place.
Vegas is a better place, right? Better place. So, so can I tell them like the exciting news?
Yes.
I can.
Yes.
All right. So let's tell our listeners that, look, I know there's a lot of people out there that want to learn areola work. It's some of the most rewarding work you will ever do in your entire career. And it's some of the greatest service you could ever give to another human.
And the most challenging.
Yes.
And the easiest to mess up.
Yes.
Sorry to kind of put that
I'm
in
trying
there.
I'm trying to, but it's true.
Yeah, because we did this. So one of the girls that I work with, Becky, over in the UK, we did a survey.
Becky Gibbons?
No, Barker.
Okay.
So people aren't doing research on this. And now some people are starting to do research. We just started sharing something. There's like medical research actually finally happening around this. So we just kind of started with like a little basic idea and like, let's just give survivors a voice. And what we found was 81% of breast cancer survivors were less happy with their body after they got tattooed.
Oh,
so they might be really excited when they first see the tattoo. Like I was like, I didn't have anything. Then I did. And that really is really losing your breasts and losing your nipple areola complex is a really intense thing to go through. It's an amputation and it's intense and it does affect your mental health. And I don't care who you are. Nobody goes through that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and you'll be really excited. Like your clients, if you do areola tattoos, without the foundation, your clients will be really excited when they first see it, but then they might go home and maybe it fades too much, or maybe it's scarred, or maybe it doesn't heal well, and maybe they're not happy with it, and maybe you don't hear that and you don't know that. So you just think that you're doing good work, so you just keep doing the same thing, right? So what we found was 81% of survivors were less happy with their body after they got tattooed. One lady said, and I hope Becky doesn't mind me sharing this with this community, one lady said that she wears a bra in the bath.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
She can't even look at her own body. So the way that I translate that, and this is going to be a hard-hitting point that I'm going to make right now, is 8 out of 10 tattooists are causing harm to their survivors.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 tattooists are harming their clients. So my whole thing in life is I just want to reduce that.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep. So it's heartbreaking. And thank you for doing the work that you do. So that will segue us right into that you are going to be teaching here at the Girlz Ink studio. You are. And I would not want any other person here but you teaching this class. So all our listeners, if you're interested in learning areola tattooing or relearning it,
that's like, I was like, man, if I just help the people who've already kind of gone through it and are making a couple mistakes and just wish that they had their knowledge deepened.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would be great. Even just relearning it or just like leveling up your game a little bit so that your stuff gets more realistic.
Yes,
I love that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your class is going to sell out. So everybody listening to this podcast that would like to learn from Stacie and learn areola work, we have a wait list. So email training@girlzink.com, and in the email title, put areola, Stacie Areola, if you want to learn and attend her areola class, or scar if you want to take her scar class, because they are two separate classes. You do not combine them because that's too much to put into one class. Let me ask you this. If we had a listener who is like, I want to learn both, do you suggest learning one before the other, or does it not matter?
Man, you must be a trainer at heart, because that is like, that's brilliant. Yeah. So ideally, ideally you'd want to learn a little bit about scars and then go home and get some experience in scars, like learn how to like needle stretch marks, and maybe a little bit about like inkless is a big thing these days, and a lot of those solutions are causing people to hyperpigment. So it's like it's not even really being utilized that well. So you want to learn a little bit about scar tissue and go home and do some work on scars, and then work on your drawings, because I do teach hyperrealism, and then come back and learn how to put the drawing into the scar.
Right.
That's like a nice way to do it.
Yeah.
That will set you up for success.
Right.
That'll set you up to be that top 20% instead of that bottom 80%.
Exactly. Now, let me ask you this. So let's say someone signs up for areolas with you, and they have to learn to draw them, like 3D. They have to do a 3D drawing on paper.
Yeah.
Do you have a pre-study?
Yeah.
So by the time they get to your class, they already can make a nipple look like it's popping off a piece of paper. Okay. Because I think that would be important.
Yes, it's very important.
So you got to pre-study.
You can't tattoo it if you can't draw it. If you can't draw it, you can't tattoo it. But drawing it doesn't mean you can tattoo it.
Right,
Like putting it in scar tissue is a completely different thing. So that's like where the art and the craft comes in. So the drawing part is the tattoo artist part, and the technical ability to put it into scar tissue is the craft part.
Yes, because this is about as close as a PMU artist is going to get to a tattoo, because they have to learn light and dark shading, right? And how to bring something forward to make it look 3D. So, and some clients want the mammary glands, and so you have to make them look a little bumpy sometimes. I mean, so you teach all that, and your work is you're one of the best in the world. You are. So you thought I didn't know who you were.
Well, when I came down here in 2018, nobody knew, because I'm not a PMU tattooist, right?
Well, my wife, she likes new shoes, and so yeah, I think some people are kind of surprised that I still see clients. But that's what brings me joy. I wish I could see clients more, but when you run a company, you have a store, and blah blah blah, you get bogged down with projects. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I enjoy all my projects, but sometimes you don't. You get a little bit too far away from the work. But got to rock out a great pair of eyebrows today. I was excited, but no, I still see clients. I still enjoy being in the skin and tattooing, and thank God you do too. So
yeah, I just started a sleeve last week, and I was like when I was doing the drawings, I was like, am I going to be able to tattoo this? Oh my goodness, I haven't done something this big in a while. When was the last time I did something this big? It's been like 8 months. Oh my God, I was totally tripping out. And then I started drawing. Like as soon as I started like laying those lines in, I was just like, I love tattooing. I fucking love tattooing. Oh, I just swore I did it.
It's okay. Look, I let an F-bomb oopsie out every now and then too. So I think all our listeners are adults. I try not to cuss too much.
The truth is, I fucking love tattooing. So that's like
you
a
are
good
body
spot for an
tattooer, and you do have you have a little bit of language, that was a big difference being in a shop tattooing clients with the heavy metal music going and black walls and the F-bombs, dropping in front of clients. I would be in that atmosphere. And then the next day I would get up the next day and go into my little tattoo room, which was 99 square feet at the moment. And then, bright white walls, and you can't cuss, and completely. So it's like it was like two characters I had to like snap in and out of, which was interesting. But anyway, so I always like to close. Time to close. So I always like to close with a positive saying, a positive quote. So I always ask my guests if they have a favorite positive quote or a positive saying or something that, and if you do, would you do the honors?
Happily. So I'm going to say a little bit more than just the quote, but the quote's powerful. I'm going to tell you guys why. My spiritual tattoo mentor, Keely Tackett, who died a few years ago to breast cancer, just randomly, anyways, it's just everywhere. She wrote me this card back in like 1998, and it just said, be inspired, inspire others. And I just love that. I say it. So I give her credit, obviously, for saying it. It's in my book. But the reason is because art is life. And if you can be inspired, then you can be inspired by anything.
Right.
Anything, a sunset,
Right.
like hearing people laugh, just like you can be inspired by every minute of every
Right.
day, and inspire others every minute of every day by your appreciation of those
Right.
moments, right? Get people out of their heads and into the moment. So that's thanks to Keely. Be inspired, inspire others.
Be inspired and inspire others. Yeah, that's deep. And if you're not inspired, are you living?
Right.
Are you really, truly living? If
Right.
you're not inspired,
Yeah.
feeling inspired, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not inspiring others, and you're not paying it forward, you're not, yeah, that's deep. I get really deep on some of these quotes. I do. So thank you so much for popping down today. Yeah. I'm just getting to know you, got to know you even more in the podcast, your real life podcast. Yeah. So it's really cool. So yeah. So, once again, Stacie-Rae.com, you can buy, skins, her needles. And I do believe you even have pigments, right?
Yeah. So, how do I say this? I had a hand in creating the Pink Ribbon series, as most people know. And now just this year, just a couple months ago, we came out with Ever After made a Stacie-Rae Areola set. So that's kind of cool to be able to work with both of those companies on two different projects. They're very different pigment sets, which is also kind of fun. Actually, could I just give these guys a little bit of free advice if they're going to be using either of those sets? Dilute. If you want natural results. Dilute that down. Do not mix brands. And I'm sorry, I got some advice to share. I thought we were closing. Anybody
that knows me knows I am a huge diluter. I dilute just even for my brow work, my eyeliner work, my lips, definitely my areola work. So dilute.
Yeah. So make sure that you use for your dilution solution. Make sure that you use the the wash solution that comes with that brand. So with Ever After is Essence. With world famous, I think it's shading solution, and don't mix brands in one session.
Well, that's
people who've been through, people that are immunocompromised. There weird things could be going on inside the body if they're on cancer treatments, and no reliable research has been done on it yet. But we're seeing bad things in the bodies, including what you guys are hearing about, stuff showing up in lymph nodes.
Yeah. That's rule. That's definitely, rule number one, never mix brands, So that was great advice. So Stacie-Rae.com, skins, pigments, needles, everything areola and scar work. And, again, email us at training@girlzink.com to get on your wait list. We haven't announced the dates yet. So email us to get on the wait list for Stacie's class, because you only do 3, maybe 4 students per class. And we will have an information sheet to email back to you on pricing, dates, and all that class includes. And Stacie will also be seeing areola and scar chemo clients here at the studio, which I'm super excited about. So thank you for hanging out with us today. You were fucking awesome. Oops. No, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. That was an amazing hour with Stacie-Rae. And remember, for those of you that are audio streaming us on Spotify, iTunes, Buzzsprout, and Podcast Addict, you can also, if you want to know what Stacie-Rae was wearing today, you can check us out on YouTube, Tatter-a-fact YouTube. And so thank you very much. Like and follow us. They mean a lot to us. We appreciate. Ask questions, engage us. We love that. And stay in the pursuit of happiness, everyone. We will see you next time.